Hello, welcome. In this video, I'm going to share my reading plan for my book club for July 2025. If you don't know, I run a book club for non-native English speakers or anyone else out there who loves reading short stories and talking about them with other people. I've been doing this now for 2 years plus, and it's part of a personal project of mine to find the greatest short story writers in Western literature. So, with that said, we have a theme. We have a theme for July 2025. The theme is great French-ish writers. I'll explain the ish part of that when I come to it. How did I choose these writers? So I chose them using a combination of things. On the one hand, I chose them from a shortlist, a work in progress shortlist I've been making through my time with the book club of great short story writers. So on the one hand, we've got these writers that we've already read. We have already read some of their works, and now we're going back and discovering more of their works. And on the other hand, I also like to explore and try some new things, and that's a part of it as well. Why did I choose French? Because this is an English book club. That's a strange choice. Well, it's linked to my own personal reading, my own personal language learning project for the summer. One of my language learning goals is to improve my French reading skills. My French is barely intermediate, if I'm being honest, but because I have much stronger Latin and Italian skills, I'm able to punch above my weight a little bit more and can still enjoy French in the original, particularly when working with what I'm going to be working with, and that is these dual language books. And so I chose a lot of the stories based on stories that I have in print as well, so I can, one, enjoy them in print, and two, I can practice reading the French over the course of the month and get to know these stories. So that's kind of my own selfish reason for choosing it, but the club, luckily I have great members of the club who follow me and follow my interests where it goes and like to join me on this journey. So if you want to know exactly what we're going to be reading every month, you can sign up to my mailing list and you get access there to the reading list for free. Anyway, that's enough of the kind of criteria or the story behind the stories I chose. Let's get to the stories and why I chose them. So the first story we're going to read is by Honoré de Balzac, and it's called The Atheist's Mass. It's in this collection, which is why I'm still holding it up. And that's the main reason why I chose it. There's too much to choose when it comes to Balzac, actually. He's a very intimidating writer, I think. When you first discover him, like I did, he has this collection called The Human Comedy, and it's a huge work. It's like 25 volumes of stories which are all interconnected in some way. And I'm not sure if I'm going to commit to reading that or not. I need to read more of his works before I commit to that project in the future, but that's part of this, is we're going to explore more of his short stories together. This one I have actually read, because I read this in his collection many years, or 2 years ago now, but I read it, passing it in bed when I could barely speak French, and falling asleep and then picking it up the next day. So I didn't get the full effect of the short story myself. So we're going to read it together. It's all about a doctor who is a known atheist, but his assistant keeps seeing him going into a church. So he follows him and he asks him why, and that's what the story is. So that's everything to say about that one. I don't like to say too much. I often don't even know much more than that's actually unusual for me to have read the story and to know a little bit about it. I tend to go into it blind as well, which is strange because the next story I have also read because it's in this collection again. So the second story we're going to read is called Minuet by Guy de Maupassant. Now, this story is a very short story. It's only 1,500 words, and it's about a man meeting an old couple in a park, and the old couple are from a time gone by. Let's leave it at that. And the reason why I chose this, again, it's in this collection, but I really wanted to try something else with my group this week. So we're going to read multiple translations of the text. Now, we haven't done that before in a single week, but it's short. It's very short, so I hope they will join me on this. And the reason for that is I've actually got 3 translations. I've got this one, I've got the Penguin Classics one, and where did the other one come from? I can't remember, but anyway, the 3 translations I've got, the reason why I want to read them all is because I've read 2 of them. I don't want to say which ones because I don't want to bias the group or prejudice them if they see this. But I had 2 very different experiences reading those 2 translations. It's a great example of why I believe in this project of polyliteracy and why I think it's valuable, because it's only when you read different translations that you see how much it can change the story. And again, I don't want to say which ones were which, but I had 2 very different experiences. One, I would say, it was very profound, very moving. Like, it just hit me in the stomach, just like a good Guy de Maupassant story does. And the second time, it was just less. It didn't do it in the same way. I'm curious to see if we have that same experience, if I have that same experience. And I'm obviously going to try and read the French as well, personally. So hopefully my French is good enough that I have that experience. Story number 3 in July is the wild card, the ish part of the great French ish writers. So he's not really a French writer at all, actually. Well, that doesn't come through at all, does it? It's W. Somerset Maugham. Maugham, we actually have his picture on. Let me show you his picture on the back. This man here. Now, we can kind of put him in the French category, sort of, because he was actually born in France and spoke French before he spoke English. He didn't write in French, but anyway, that's not the reason why he's in the group. The reason why he's in the group is because he's on my shortlist and I want to read more of his works. So I wanted him in the list. I wanted to get to more of his stories sooner. This one that we're going to read, though, is called The Facts of Life. I know nothing about it other than it's in this collection, which I happen to have. And actually, this is my girlfriend's book. I've stolen this from her bookshelf next door. And I know nothing about it, but I found it on multiple lists. I've made a short list of his greatest stories from various websites and various things online, and this has come up. So, and it's the first one that's in the contents of this book. So that's why we're going to read it. He's a great writer who I think is kind of, I don't know if he's been forgotten or not. He definitely doesn't seem to be spoken of. Every time I mention him to anyone my age, they go, "What? Who?" So I don't know if he's been forgotten or not, or he's being forgotten. But I've really enjoyed him so far every time I've read some of his work. So that's why he's in there. Fourth story. We have to go back to this one, although actually the story we're going to read is not in this collection, so I don't need to. I can put it down. This is by Albert Camus. Now, we've read one of his stories before, and that's why he's on my short list, but technically, he shouldn't be on the list. Same with Somerset Maugham a little bit, because they're not quite old enough to be in this list of the greatest writers, because the works were published within the last 100 years. So this is more of a waiting list, greatest short story writers. But as I said, we are also exploring all sorts of literature in this group. So there are loose rules, okay? Now, we read a story called The Guest before. It was last year, and it was when we read stories based on stories by writers who won the Nobel Prize. And I think it was actually for the collection that story came from that he won the prize, and it was called Exile and the Kingdom. And we're going to read the first story from that. So it's called The Adulterous. What's it called? Sorry, The Adulterous Wife. And I don't know anything else about it other than it's in that collection, because I didn't want to go off and read a spoiler. And yeah, I also have, The Guest is in here in a dual language book, so I'm personally going to be reading that again and seeing if I enjoy it as much the second time after reading another one of his stories. Now, July is the wildcard month. It's a long month just because of how it works out, how it falls. We read on a Tuesday, so we get 5 weeks in July. You might have noticed that of my list of 4 writers so far, they are all male. And this happens a lot, actually. This happened a lot pretty much for the whole of the first year. We almost exclusively read men. And that wasn't really, you might look at that and think, oh, well, Sean has a bias. That's not why, honestly. It's just the way it works when you're focused particularly on works that are from more than 100 years ago. Your pool of great female writers shrinks. And we follow my interest. Maybe there is some bias in there. But in any case, I decided to start correcting that, really. You can't just never read women by accident. So for this one, again, because I wanted to choose stories also that I could read from my own collection of print books in the original French, I have these 3 Penguin parallel text books here. And interestingly, this one, the oldest one, doesn't have any women in either. So that was the first one out. This one is all from books. All of this are stories written after the 1970s. So that was out. Luckily, this one had several to choose from, actually, and I chose one. Now, the reason why I chose this lady, I know nothing about her. I don't know if she is really considered a great French writer, or if this is even considered a great story. But this is the experimental column. Now, I chose this one over the other female writers in the book purely because of the length, if I'm honest, because we have to have shorter stories for the book club. Otherwise, it's very difficult for the non-native speakers in it to read the stories each week. But I read a little bit about the writer. Her name is Françoise Mallet-Joris, and she had an interesting life. That would be a slight way of putting it. And the story is called Jimmy. It's from a collection called Cornelia and Other Stories, in English it was called. And the description, there's a couple of lines here. It sounds interesting. It says, so in Jimmy, the usual roles are reversed in this story of possessiveness and revenge. Set in a requisitioned chateau in conquered territory where a group of soldiers are living a kind of beggar's banquet. So what interests me there is those themes have been very common themes in many stories that we've read recently. So revenge and vengeance, that comes up a lot. And also the setting, a chateau, soldiers. This is common in many of the other French writers that I've mentioned today and other writers that we've read. So I'm intrigued to see how this woman, who I don't know who she is, I think this is actually a pen name. I'm curious to see how this woman from a different time period uses those same themes and ideas to write something different, I presume. And that's why she was chosen, also because I have it in the French and the English. That's it. Those are the 5 stories we're going to read. Thank you for sticking here to the end. I'm not going to explain much more about... I might make another video about how I'm going to use these dual language books to practice the French and to learn French. And if that's something that interests you, let me know in the comments. So far I haven't made any videos like that, but I do intend to in the future. That's it. Remember, make sure you like and subscribe to stay up to date with the latest updates. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you have a great Sunday. If you're watching this on Sunday, have a great day, whatever day it is, especially if you got to the end of this video. I appreciate it.